I want to bring in Rebecca Roiphe, former assistant Manhattan DA, now professor at New York Law School, and Rob D'Amico, former FBI agent who worked under Comey, now MSNBC national security and intelligence analyst. Welcome to you both. So, Rebecca, first of all, how strong is the government's case? And what do you make of the way it came together in just a few days?
So as a general matter, when things are working normally, I would say it's dangerous to speculate about the strength of a case because none of us were in the grand jury room. But there are reasons to believe that this case is quite different and we are no longer in what would be normal Department of Justice conduct. So the reasons to think that this is a weak case, first of all, we did have that former U.S. attorney who had strong Republican ties and was appointed by former President Trump decline or suggest that he was not going to bring charges because he did not think the evidence was strong enough. There was also an inspector general report looking into the exact same conduct where they found Comey credible for these comments that are now being called lies. And so, that in addition does not make this seem like a strong case. And finally, no line prosecutor went into the grand jury room. The political appointees went in by themselves and signed that indictment by themselves. That is quite unusual. And it is not it's not speculation to suggest that that might be because all of the prosecutors who are career officials and don't have political ties felt that this case was inadequate.
I'm going to get back to that point in just a second, but I want to bring you in, Rob, because here's some of what the president said yesterday. Let's watch.
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats, because Comey essentially was he was worse than a Democrat. It began before I got to office. You know that. Wait a minute. Before I came to office, I started hearing rumors about Russia. I said, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? Nothing. And then it got worse and worse.
Is this more about justice or is it about revenge?
It's about justice, really. It's not revenge.
So who are these others, and how do you interpret his claim that this is not revenge?
Well, it's hard to refute that it's not revenge because he said it. It's his own words. But I think John Brennan is going to be one and I think even if he can find something on General Milley, those are prominent ones that he really disliked on how they went public on certain things. So I think but they also expect it. And this is scary, that the fact that you could have even very supportive people, AG Bondi and the DAG and the U.S. attorney who was doing the bidding, saying it was a weak case, and then firing that U.S. attorney and getting one that has no prosecution experience to actually seek an indictment. I think the risk of some legal malpractice probably in there, but it's showing that it doesn't even with the professionals, not a strong case can bring an indictment. But what I don't know, the people that are supporting this, don't they think like when the roles are reversed and eventually a Democratic president's going to come in, do they not expect that, does Kash Patel not expect to be charged or whatever? It reminds me of when we went to Iraq. We got rid of Saddam Hussein, the Sunni, and our mistake was we thought we were bringing the Shiites in, and that they would say, wait, we were prosecuted for so long that they're going to expect fair treatment back to the Sunnis. And they did the exact opposite. They took revenge on them. And I think I just don't want to see that in the future. I don't want to see a revenge tit for tat, but I think that's what it's going to end up being, because this is opening up the cards to just again, going after political enemies. And I think it's going to have to naturally take the next course on the next administration.
Talk about a vicious circle, right? Okay, so Rebecca, I want to get back to what you had just said at the end of your first answer. And MSNBC agrees. We're reporting that Halligan presented the case to a grand jury on her own after senior prosecutors told her that they didn't think there was enough evidence for an indictment. Comey, on the other hand, is being represented by legendary prosecutor Pat Fitzgerald, who has led cases against 9/11 terrorists, also against mobsters. What are the government's odds in the Comey case?
So, I mean, again, it's dangerous to speculate at this early stage. The indictment is so bare bones. We really see very, very little of what the government's cards are. But, again, from what we see, this looks like an extremely weak case. And it's weak for two reasons. Both, it looks weak on the facts. So first of all, it's sort of at its best, it's a he said case in which it would be the former FBI chief Jim Comey's words versus his deputy, Andrew McCabe's words. But the problem with that is it's not only just that, it's also that McCabe didn't in fact say the opposite of what Jim Comey said. He said that Jim Comey authorized this. And he said Jim Comey, after he had brought this information and said that he had leaked it, Jim Comey didn't object. And all Jim Comey said is, I didn't authorize the leak. And it's actually both of those comments could be true at the same time. So it really seems from the facts that we have that this would be an extremely poor case, because even if you were to believe Andrew McCabe over Jim Comey, which again, the Inspector General did not, you could have a situation in which you believe both of them. And the proof, the level of proof you have to bring for a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. So how does the government meet that burden given the facts here?
I want to ask you if this matters, Rebecca, because two sources familiar tell MSNBC that only 14 of 23 grand jurors voted to indict on 2 counts. They, in fact, declined to indict on that 3rd count. And again, Halligan's the only prosecutor to sign this indictment. So Rob alluded to this. Can she find herself in legal jeopardy over this? I think Rob cited legal malpractice.
Well, I think it'd be very unusual to have legal malpractice, and there's some hurdles for that with regard to official immunity. But I do think it opens, we're really in a situation in which a selective prosecution claim, which is essentially a claim that the government has brought this case in a biased way against an individual for their beliefs or for legal action that they have taken, lawful action that they have taken. That is usually extremely hard. It is extremely hard to win such cases. But I do think under these circumstances, there are so many indicators that might be what is going on, that before we even got to a trial, it is possible that motions to dismiss this case based on selective prosecution could succeed.
So, Rob, I want to play what some other experts are saying. Let's watch this together.
At this point, being innocent is no longer a bar to being prosecuted for a federal crime by this administration.
You essentially have the president using the Department of Justice as a loaded gun that he can point at people.
We don't live in a monarchy. This isn't a king. You can't, snap your fingers and say, go after this person because I don't like them.
So look, those already under investigation are either Trump critics or they're folks who've investigated or prosecuted him, with the exception of Federal Reserve Board member Lisa Cook, who Trump targeted for not pushing for the interest rate cuts that he wants. What charges do you anticipate in these cases? What ultimately is the point?
The ultimate point, is fear of prosecution. Again, I think as John Brennan said, he lives in the past. He doesn't put anything behind him, and he does not forget who was against him at points, and that's going to be trouble for a number of people. But most people believe, like, hey, I didn't commit a crime, so I'm not going to get indicted. And I think that's the opposite of what we're having now, and that's a shame. But I do think ultimately, as Rebecca said, like, this will. If it goes to court, I think it's going to be easily going to be on Comey's side. Again, even as she said, that if Andrew McCabe comes out and says, he told me this, and again, the Inspector General found him lack of candor. So are you going to believe someone that's already been found have lack of candor? But so I think it's just going to be tough to even prove them. And I don't know if they're really understanding, like, if it goes to court and it comes out, very much so on Comey's side and other people are being prosecuted, if they understand what kind of hit that's going to be on their reputation.